Chilly here with Sirius Thomas Moon. This is Mars over Jupiter Day. Mars is 7 degrees Pisces, conjoining Fomalhaut and Rahu. And we have the Moon still in Mula Nakshatra, ruled by Saturn. Saturn 3 degrees Aries. And Pluto 4 degrees Aquarius. Venus is separating from the sextile to Pluto to the square. And this is more of an energy reading than anything. It seems to be that from the perspective, and this is kind of like a timeline that is tentative, meaning one doesn't have to stay in that timeline, or at least I, the reader, don't know if it is like fated trajectory or it is choice that someone can make, or that this energy reading can be reflective of something that can allow someone to make a choice, and that is a fated situation. But what I'm receiving is that somebody is on a pathway or is receiving a lot of information, whether it is about world infrastructure or something like oligarch. And that person may very well be on path to be oligarch. And that path is available for them. They can be that if they want to. And at the same time, they might not realize that they don't actually have to choose between being wealthy and being loving or having love. And something may be presented as ultimatum or as fated choice for them, or maybe they have done things in the past that they believe that the choice has already been made. But it might not be necessarily so. Because this Rahu in Jupiter's sign, Jupiter exalted, tells me that there can be fated choice. What type of relation do they have with wealth? Does wealth have to be the oligarch where no woman that wants love that is actually loving can be with that? And the only women that will be would be women that would fake, that will be gold diggers. That will have misplaced arousal rather than authentic, relaxed arousal based attraction. And at the same time, they might not be aware that they don't have to choose between being wealthy and having love in their lives. Whichever form this love might take. Might not be with a particular person that they're seeing. But they also perhaps are invited to look at the rejection they get from the person that's been along the journey and is supportive of the growth, supportive of the dreams, supportive of the goal, but not aligning with something is not love that is actually loving, there's not relaxed arousal, and therefore there is not a wealth but a bubble, a myth. Again, it doesn't mean that this person wouldn't be registered as owner of land or a big conglomerate, but there's something in the heart that will always be bitter. And with this person, it could be even friend, is almost like reminding that person, you don't have to choose, you don't have to be rich and evil or poor and in love. There's something else. There's some other thing that can open up for you. But if you choose to be oligarch, then only women that fake it, okay? it's not that they would not be attracted, but they would be attracted to power more than they would be good friends. Because this energy is not energy that is allowing place for a mutual business partner. There's something around the intimacy. There's something around what sexual energy is based on trauma. There's something where the person cannot be present with, loving with, equal with in intimacy. And that's not something that would attract a partner that is not either having some sort of a complex that is compatible with this person, which is possible. But what is sacrificed here is the joy of marital life, or the joy of relationship. It doesn't have to be monogam, not monogam. But something is sacrificed here, and is invitation for this person to see that the sacrifice is over nothing, that they don't actually need to sacrifice that. But to deal with that, they will have to deal with their sexual traumas. So why do they become oligarch? Based on sexual traumas, and maybe oligarch that is based on trafficking cities, looting cities, people being raped because of what this person is doing or what he's invested in. And then the nature or the look of nature or the beauty of nature is diminished. It's like all the beauty in the world is not, even with something that could be loving, but then when it comes to intimacy, is not loving. Sometimes egoic more than present with. And here's the thing with this person, in their heart, they're not necessarily egoic in their heart, but there's something that needs to align with the lower chakras and the upper chakras. With whomever they will choose to be. And they're invited to look at this and say that their love to nature, their love to art, their love to life doesn't have to coincide with this egoic, predatory, kind of egomaniac. That is all because of something to do with sexual trauma and to do with the Masonic rites. And when they take the young boy, and young boy has sometimes even first time with trafficked person, and then this trauma for the trafficked person and for that young boy. And this is if he doesn't deal with that by abolishing trafficking. Then he will never be able to have good intimacy, satisfying intimacy that's not from a egoic place but from a loving place. There's not something where he thinks of only himself. Because there's a difference between standing in our power and feeling powerful from an egoic, how should I say that? Okay, and this is where into what could be love and sharing love enters bitterness, contempt. And it's indirectly, it's because of these sexual traumas and it's because of these rights. But this person, and it's just thoughts, okay? If I do like brainstorming, if person is in such position, what could I think? First of all, if this person is so powerful and the path to be something like big lord or big oligarch is open to them, it means they can change the masonry. They can change the reality of wealth. They can abolish ritual abuse. They can abolish these rights of when men are taken to trafficked person, and this is their sexual encounters. And it doesn't matter how person looks like or how. Although I'm getting this person is looking, it's not about something. How should I say? With women, they look a lot at the face of a man because the face of a man is the expression. And but the only problem that they would have is if this person is controlling. But the only reason this person to be controlling is because of these traumas. It's not this person is not loving. It's not even this person is not generous, or has capacity to be generous. It's because of these things, and they create this hidden contempt, and they need to deal with that. And this will unlock gates of wealth that they did not even imagine that possible. It will not make them one of the oligarchy or one of the people that are the predators of the world. It can make them change the face of wealth completely. But they have to change that, not even in their heart, but with the alignment of the sexual trauma. Because it's like the heart is okay, and then when it reaches intimacy, there's this trauma, and then there's contempt. Then there's dissociation. Then there is this egoic place. This need to be one up. And this is only because of the sexual traumas. Um, and this is problems of a lot of billionaires. They can have, in essence, good heart in nature. They have capacity to be good friend, to be benevolent, and so on. But because the sexual traumas that they've been through, then something. And this is why they would always be in a situation where either if they attract someone similar in woman or gay relationship, then it would be contempt involved with love. And many people live like that. Or that they would attract from the heart, and then a person would not be able to be with them because of the contempt. Love and contempt, they don't reside together. Or they will be surrounded with all these trafficked beauties. What is trafficked beauties? Uh, Girls and boys, sex trafficked, raped, tortured, ritually abused, and they learn to be all the fantasies that this person can even imagine. But they will always be contempt. He would be cruel to these people. And that these people in return would be, yes, betraying him. Either they would be honeypots, or they would be um, all the way from assassination to making him make bad business decisions, and all of this because they have not addressed. Now, if he is making that choice and he forgets that he doesn't have to, it's not ultimatum. It's not either you're rich oligarch but contemptuous and with all your love to nature, with all your love to the beauty of the land, the art, and so on. Then you stay in this contempt timeline. Is only those things can be brought by these frequencies. Um, because if he chooses to not change the face of wealth, which can be accessible for him, again, I'm not saying that I know for sure something is accessible. I'm just brainstorming as I'm having this energy reading, because I don't like to be doom and gloom. I don't like to be a sane person making choices, and I don't like to, how should I say for sure there is a choice where I don't know for sure, or if he's trapped in some situation, but I also don't want to be all doom and gloom. And I think if person is on that path to be on that wealth, they can shift wealth. They can shift to these things that created contempt in them. And they have to understand that their trajectory to wealth is their life energy. The contempt and the trauma are actually decreasing the wealth, not increasing. They were taught differently, so that they will be extortable. Because the minute, and this is something that crossing the tam and crossing the threshold, if the body but also lower chakra aligned with the heart, with an open, loving heart, they have to always, even if the self-pleasure, if they masturbate, they have to always have a loving heart. Because this is wealth. Or they would be billionaire but unhappy. And the extortion courts, they love billionaires unhappy. They love oligarchs unhappy. Because they can send a child, or send even woman's not child. It was trafficked. And this is honeypot. And this is where this woman will give him all of his fantasies. And she can even be really attracted because she has her own sexual trauma to resolve and doesn't know how to. But between him and them is no venue to transmute this sexual trauma. Because she will have handler, again, unless it's some anomaly case, but she will have handler, and then probably she's meeting him and there are a lot of extortions around. He will be extorted to make bad policies, and that he will gain some money from these policies, but then he's war criminal or doing crimes against humanity. Even if he already is, he still doesn't have. If this was a doom and gloom, I would probably not get this as a reading. And because if he does turn to that, then he will not be extortable. And then his legacy will really align with his heart. Not with his bitter heart, not with his contemptuous heart, but with his loving heart. Whoever he may be with. And maybe the person that they are thinking, or the person that they felt hurt by, which has nothing to do with that person. Maybe that's not the person for them. But the alignment with the heart is what's important. And with the alignment with the heart, also in intimacy. You cannot even torture yourself when in the heart you have contempt. Definitely not touch another. And this is awareness that is business awareness. It's awareness of whether somebody is coming to extort him, assassinate him, to have the one-up in business, or whether it's an actual deal. An actual deal is always win-win. It's not what they are taught, because they're grown by extortion cults. And they're meant to be extortable. And they're meant to think that this big oligarch, that they own this land and they own this, and then boom, all of their art is looted. All of the art is confiscated. A billionaire from one moment becomes a beggar. Or people have to run away, doing big crime in some country, big oligarch in some country, and have to run away, and the children suffer. Because they have to run away, and they cannot run away to countries where they are loved or appreciated. But when they run away, people know what they did because they're exiled to the place where they did the war crimes. This is the extortion called logic that people don't understand. They can lie about their origins. They can now, again, if it's something that I don't know, but if it's something that I'm receiving, I'm probably not receiving that. My belief, I'm not receiving that as energy reading. It has absolutely nothing to do about this now. I just don't think so. Okay, it's Mars hour, Mars is action. In sign of Jupiter, Jupiter is choice. Maybe fate around this choice, or fated choice, or fated opportunity to make choice. And even Saturn is ruled by this Mars. Mars is with Fomalhaut. It means that we get the psychic information that allows us to shift the timeline. To understand that the bitterness within is from these rites of the secret societies, and when we change these rites, when we put an end to these rites, something clears in the heart. No more will boys suffer in this way. And that evacuates the toxicity and allows for the heart to heal, and also for the sexuality to heal, and then is wealth that is wealthy. A person will not have to be poor because they have loving heart. On the contrary, they will identify when a deal is lottery, when a deal is a scam, and that when somebody is going to inflate their ego and their bank account. But in one day, poof. And when is actually love that is actually loving. A good business deal is win-win. It's on frequency of love that is actually loving. And people don't know that it's possible to make wealth this way. And perhaps this person needs to remember that they are loved, and the only thing interfering is those things what was done to them. Because just like when they traffic the women, they try to make it, oh, the person looks like that. Oh, the person is fat. How will you have babies if you cannot see a woman? How will she have babies if somebody wants a baby for a woman? How will you have a woman that will have your babies if you cannot see her fat? If she is fat, maybe she is fat because somebody did not, either she is pregnant or after pregnancy, or somebody was not respecting her. And so she's defending herself. Or the access to food, but this is usually to do with those things. And then we would see many times women in such situations say they accept themselves, and then they radically accept themselves, and then what happens? They begin to get fit. They begin to eat well, and they can't help it. They're losing weight. They're gaining muscles. They're gaining themselves back. They can't help it. Unless they were prescribed something. And then usually they will find out up to what point that prescription is fit and was no longer. And it usually has to do with recovery from sexual trauma. which means the world no longer enabling trafficking. But also not just the trafficked people, also, and the women in such society, even if they're not trafficked, but also the men, they will come to think there's something wrong with this or something wrong with that, or if they have a disability, or all these things that are not actually authentically connected. And for some of them, it's going to look real. But hey, with my looks, or but hey, with my height, or but hey, with the... No, it's not. Maybe you were taught like this because you were bullied. But it's because you were bullied. There are women that are looking like models, and they were bullied, and they have all these internal issues. And there are women that were raped, and they can look amazing because they have to put on masks. But inside,
חל איסור לבצע קשירת אופניים בתוך הרכבת. אנו מפנים את תשומת לבכם כי אסור להניח רגליים על המושבים.
and this is affecting our world, this is affecting our economy, this is affecting the wealth of nations, this is affecting the state of war. And it causes everyone to suffer. Because wealth is made from contempt is yielding a bitter billionaire. And then a person that has contempt for anyone that he would love, and has to look down and has to have the one up and has this thing that he's not sorted with himself. By the way, also women, because there are also women that go through these thresholds, but this reading I feel is for men. Yet everybody around him either would hold the same frequency of contempt, and this can be either because he attracts a woman that is with the same, or she would look down on him, or she would put him down, or something like that, or he attracts a woman that would be all of his fantasies, but inside contempt, and then she would betray him. True cohesion. It can only be with zero rape, zero slavery. And it can also be that this person has somewhat of an intricate, like, I wouldn't say obsession, but more like there's something that they have not closed with themselves. And this is because whoever that person, they have this kind of like unfinished emotional, whether it's friendship, whether, I don't know. But this is because they met friction to this timeline of the bitter oligarch. And this friction is not coming to say, oh, you can be a loving person, what do you need this money for? No. It's saying, no, your healthy life energy is wealthy. All these things that you see, they're in your life energy. Even if you siphoned energy, it's not the actual wealth you have is not siphoned and it's not looted. It's that you believe that you need to siphon energy to have this. And this is what aligning the lower chakras and the upper chakras in the heart. Because the lower chakras is survival needs. Some people, their roles are to be lord of land because, let's say, if you found a new country and you're lord of land, you can pay it as dividends to the people that will later own the land and change completely how land and sovereignty exist in the world. Okay, just one thing that I think about. For example, if we don't have extortion cults, if we don't have rape and slavery in the kingdom, and the transformation can be that one person is lord of land, but they heal their own sexual traumas, and they abolish rape and slavery, and they abolish the secret society rights, and each person is taught the alignment, and then each person is sovereign. The life energy is connected to their own natural resources, real estate. And we have a kingdom of sovereigns, sovereign women, sovereign men, sovereign children. I can move. No, no problem. I was trying silently, but it's okay. Um, so, basically, this friction is not trying to diminish this person, but they're posing the question. To go on that path without aligning the lower and higher chakras, there's one timeline. And even in that timeline, it's not like it's forever. It's a point of intervention. But if you actually tend to these things, you will not be less rich, but your wealth will sustain. And it might not be as visible or flashy as those that have bubbles, but it can sustain through way more generations. Because there's something about love that is actually loving that is not easily looted. It does stand the test of time. Because one person aligns himself with love that is actually loving and embody lower, higher chakras, they're not betraying themselves because they're not in dissociation from this thing that they cannot bring to the surface. So their relationships and intimacy are way more authentic. They don't have to choose between being bitter to being inauthentic anymore. Saturn is also applying to sextile Pluto. And all of these things are very supportive because those decisions that are being made are not to be made from a place of deprivation from any type of abundance. Jupiter is exalted, there is abundance. But if one is inflated with contempt, then at least at this juncture, they will be in timeline of the bitter oligarch. Or if one is even at this point aware, then they can alleviate that bitterness. For example, even if they are where they are, by just being aware, they can begin to stand in their own power in the face of those things that try to get them to perpetuate the trauma of what these rites of the Masonic do. Because what they do is they make a person feel disempowered while they are the offender. Why? Because when child or young man, a Mason introduced them to the network, and they are someone, and they can think that someone is a prostitute, because at that time they don't know. They don't know what it is. So first, they have this experience, which is incredibly traumatic, and they have no place to process that, because the point is that they will be left with trauma. And then they go up the ranks until they are supposed to hold such cities, those profitable cities. And they're supposed to hold it with that contempt. And that contempt, that trauma is never alleviated, because that's the point of the extortion cult. Is that by the time they realized what was behind that, they have already held that contempt without resolution, that they blame the trafficked people. They shift the blame. But it's a trauma response. And this affects all of their career, because it is what makes them extortable. And they keep trying to alleviate with the business thing about Mars. A colleague astrologer, a world-renowned astrologer, he commutes also in Top. Once I heard him say to me, Shirley, if you don't like the way of a man, you don't like the man. Because he said, Shirley, what is Mars? I said, go down there. So if you don't like the way of a man, you don't like the man. Never try to change the way of a man. But what happens when the way of a man is a result of a rite of trauma that is like a Ford manufacture? Then all men with all Marses, compatible, not compatible, will line up with this Ford manufacture techniques, that each of them is introduced to trafficked person, while not really knowing about what is this industry. All of them will have this unresolved trauma. All of them will feel disempowered by the women that they raped, and many times they were young boys even. And it would be their best friend that would introduce them to the network. Usually the best male friend. And sometimes they will even have A crush on someone that's not so attainable for them. Like person can have, I don't know, if they go to school, crush on the teacher, or so they caught at a sensitive point, and then they go through trauma, they ascend to this process, and then they begin to slowly but surely climb up the ladder. If they give up certain things, then they wait to try to manufacture the next crisis in that person's life, so that they will begin to bring them into more and more layers. And there's a lot of money there, and there's a lot of what looks like sex. There is rape, but there's a lot of rape there. There's a lot of temporary alleviation of bottle up frustrations that don't have an outlet. And there is addiction. And this affects whatever they can come with, whichever Mars, whichever way. So they go through this line of what they call initiation. And they come out with this particular trauma. And this is how men become undermined. And to resolve this, it's not a personal case. It's also not the personal choices that a man made. It's about the change in society, but in a secret society. And this is what Mars Neptune bring. Where contempt can only be alleviated with looking into their own issues and having the societal change. Because this is a manufacture line for bitter billionaires, bitter oligarchs, bitter power business people that are extortable. And they are going to be inflated, looted, or assassinated. That's the line of production. It's a patent. And they're taught to believe that only trauma makes wealth. It's the other way around. But they make wealth with trauma that is based on having the one-up, on being predatory. Then they're looted, then they're assassinated. Then exactly when they want to have a legacy there, the lineage falls down. And it's all perpetuating the initial trauma of those things. I know with cloning is even worse. So this affects their Mars, which means it's going to affect their business, their way in business. And that's the point. So that they will generate perpetual lower frequency of business, lower frequency of politics, in whichever type of democracy, military regime, oligarchy, monarchy, theocracy, whatever, or meritocracy even. Because it doesn't matter what's the name of it once they got the trauma manufactured. And that's the infrastructure that they control. It's not the railway, it's not the oil, it's not the gas. It's the infrastructure over the trauma of the soul that generates the bitter billionaire, the looted people, the trafficked around him. Ocher. And that pattern preserves everything in perpetual war. People will fight over feminism, people will fight over racism, over nationalism, over capitalism or socialism, over Christianity or Islam. But until they don't embody that, this is where this is where people break out of the matrix regardless of their position. Because all of their contempt is basically to the network that created it, but they were introduced by their best male friend that was there for them at the time of crisis. His trauma bond. That friend would also went through that. And then they have to also bring another person. And this is how we see competent men, intelligent men, rich people, groundbreaking discoveries, and still something seems like same pattern. No matter what the Mars is. And this is affecting the frequency of having love that is actually loving in the world. So Lilith here is, Venus here is applying to trine Lilith. And also Saturn is not too far from applying to trine Lilith, with Saturn ruling over Pluto. So, and the Lilith separating from the sextile to Pluto, which means we have amiable relations between embodying the message of Lilith and addressing those taboo issues in something that is less crisis than, let's say, a square between Lilith and Pluto. People that are having fixed signs, first decan Lilith, they have the hard aspects right now. So this, guys, is a better time, most opportune time to deal with that square or that conjunction if it's Aquarius. It's like the lesser evil. um, because a lot of them hold shame, and if they don't deal with the trauma, they will alleviate the shame by being perpetrator again. So essentially it can be the desire to feel powerful in a phase where they may have experienced rejection that was good for them. Let's say if they were, I don't know, in love with someone more older than them, that somebody not being their lover was good for them. Okay, as or in case of people who are older, if they older like not young people, not adolescent to mid beginning 20s. A little older than that, it can be person is yes not single, but they may have felt compelling attraction and so on and so forth, but they're not single. And they may have hold shame around what the circumstances that they ran into that person. Okay, but maybe they were set to set this person up, or if that person reached them, maybe they were set to set this person up, and they may have to deal with that because that what it entails recovering from those things. It's not participating and trafficking.
הרכבת תיכנס מיד לתחנת רמלה.
Of course, to all of that, there is the atmosphere of the everything mean nothing and all this very, very dark use of occult. Like I said, it's not ritual abuse, it's an abuse of ritual. And this Pluto um, going over this list with here Saturn trine in Lilith, Pluto sextile in Lilith in transit is useful for the people that have their Lilith aspected by Pluto now, whether favorably or harshly. Because this is a Lilith story. This is a Lilith story. And yeah, so people have placement in the first decan of the fixed signs. They are the ones experiencing this the most. But particularly Venus, Lilith, maybe Mars can also experience that. Because they may have felt, basically the harsh aspects may denote that there was an erotic rejection that was because of this issue of misplaced arousal versus relaxed arousal, and safe relation or secure attachment versus trauma bond. And some of these people may have tried to be in power over the situation and tried to make another person feel those things, but they were the friction because they identified what this is about. And this was a crisis of dealing with this erotic rejection. And it can be, for some people, it can be from people that would otherwise be attracted, but with eroticism, they cannot. Because it needs to be relaxed arousal, not misplaced arousal. It needs to be aligned with the heart and not with contempt.
בקווים אחרים ניתן להחליף רכבת בתחנה זו.
In these societies, like, everybody is trafficked there. Even the first ladies are trafficked before they are the first ladies. And they are met with friction. And that friction tackles the fundamentals. Okay, Aries, the fundamentals of this secret society. But correctly predicts, okay, whether it was the Epstein list, whether it was the observing the looting of the art from the oligarchy in the Russia-Ukraine war, whether it was oligarchies for the Standard Oil bunch, and remember, Stalin did not have doctors. Because he knew